Oh, why don't you go find a wall socket and stick your tongue in it? That'll give you a charge.
I'll stick my tongue up your pretty pussy.
You fucking creep!
I'm going to kill you.
Hi, thank you for watching. My name is Josh Onimus.
Shawn Kelley.
You're watching episode
11
of the Variant Verdict. Tonight's episode is Black Christmas for our holiday edition of the Verdict. This is a 1974 slasher film that's about sorority sisters living in a sorority house during Christmas time, and they get an anonymous phone call that sets off a chain of events that can barely be explained. So let's just start with this movie. This movie's got the cast with Margot Kidder of Superman fame. She played Lois Lane. You have Keir Dullea from 2001, A Space Odyssey in it.
You have Olivia Hussey, who's from the 1968 Romeo and Juliet.
Bingo.
And then we have John Saxon.
Yep, the famous cop who played Nancy's father in
Nightmare on Elm Street. And guess what he plays in this?
A cop.
A cop.
And he actually does a damn fine job. So
I love him as a cop. He should always be a cop.
So before we get into what this story's about, that was why, right off the bat, that's probably the number one reason I wanted to watch this film for our edition, because it's just a unique kind of like fire in a bottle movie where you have this cast that you never see in film normally together in a Christmas slasher film.
Yes. The first holiday slasher film, isn't it?
Yes. This predates Halloween by John Carpenter by 3 years. So it could be considered the first holiday slasher film, setting off a genre that we love forever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, which, I mean, ultimately, this movie definitely has its decent qualities and things of that sort, but, I mean, we'll get into more detail about that in the end. So, I mean, let's take a look. So this movie ultimately starts out where a Christmas party is going on in a sorority house. Everyone's drinking a little bit, everyone's having a little fun, you know, your arguments, you got little things going on, and all while this is happening, some random, unknown psycho killer just decides to crawl into their attic.
Yes. So this killer crawls into their attic, and while these girls are having a blast, they're hanging out drinking, they get a phone call, a mysterious phone call, and they have this guy who's just, when they pick it up, is saying very nasty, cruel, expletive things to them. What are some of the things that he says in that? Do you remember, Sean?
Oh, Jesus. Well, you know what? I don't even want to say it because it's ridiculous. So yeah. just listen to this.
Pretty big cunt. Pretty big cunt. I make a pretty big clit. I'm like a tuning fork, baby.
Yeah, so that's a thing. This is the 70s, 1974. So where a lot of it, you know, they didn't have a lot of rules and PC things. They'd let a lot of things go, but even the language in this felt a little jarring for the time, especially, I don't know, when I see like Lois Lane on screen and I'm hearing those words, it just didn't feel right.
It reminded me very much of a grindhouse aesthetic, like Rob Zombie does stuff that's very gruff, in your face, kind of like no holds barred horror film.
Tarantino too.
Yeah, and to see, like I said, like you mentioned, this cast of actors that are massively famous for being in like big films, doing these kind of like small scale slasher film. Especially this one that's this vulgar. So as far as this movie, Sean, like, how did you feel about like the pacing of the movie?
See, here's the thing about the pacing, and this is, I mean, sorry for anybody who's never seen it. Spoiler reviews. It came out in 74, so you're lost. Anyway, the main thing about it I have an issue with this is that right in the beginning of the movie, you get your first kill. Obviously, it's a slasher movie, so, you know, people are going to get killed. How long? And so we have our first kill.
Well, do you remember how that kill happens?
Well, I mean, she gets suffocated. You know, she gets a little, you know, plastic bag wrapped around her head and everything, and she gets taken out. Now, the whole thing I have an issue with this is, for how long? 40 minutes or so? This stopped becoming a slasher movie and more of an investigation and trying to find the person that was killed.
Yeah, her name is Claire. And that's
Claire.
Because you only hear it about 10,000 times.
10,000 times.
The movie starts to pick up in the latter half. And the funny part is you see Claire most of the time in this movie has a prop, an inanimate body sitting on a rocking chair with a suffocating bag
in front of a window.
Yes, because the camera tends to pan to her like randomly throughout the film just to remind you she's dead.
She's right up in the attic.
Hanging out. So yeah, this movie does do an unusual thing, like you said, where it kind of has that first death in the beginning and rides a lot of its runtime on that.
On that only.
But like, and what happens in the second act is it's a lot of subplot and development with Jess, who's played by Olivia Hussey, and Peter, who's played by Keir Dullea, having this like kind of romantic tit for tat. And by the end of the second act, you kind of learn that she's pregnant, and he's having difficulty with school, wants to drop out, get married. She wants to stay in school, pursue her dreams, yada yada. Very typical story there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it wouldn't be detrimental to the movie if you just didn't spend so much time on it.
No, well, if you spend more time on it actually being a slasher movie instead of some kind of like, college drama / missing persons movie.
Yeah, or spending an hour worrying about Claire's death when we only got like 5 minutes prior screen time. I mean, maybe. I don't know how many lines she may have, a handful
maybe
or less.
5 minutes. That's the thing. And no, I mean, then you also had other things about it during that lull that after the first death where like the main caretaker is a silly drunk who...
Oh, my gosh.
She has bottles hidden all over the house, coincidentally all in front of mirrors so she can stare at herself and talk to herself in the mirror.
Yeah, meanwhile, all the sorority girls she's watching are getting hammered around her, like... Doesn't seem like necessary.
Yeah, why sneak
At
it?
one point, she literally hides it inside of a book with like the carved indentation of the bottle, like
Yeah,
hidden
like-
in there, like.
but you're
straight
all
up, like,
drinking.
Boy Scout sitcom style.
They're
like,
all
it's so
drunk at a
goofy.
Christmas party. Why the hell do you need to hide a bottle? Yeah, anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
so that was a useless character, which is why she ended up, being the one to pick it back up, and she was death number 2.
Then and during the second act, we mentioned how Claire dies. Her father comes to meet her at the college, and then the second act spends a lot of time with the father trying to find the traces of what happened to his daughter, who actually he does run into the same girl that Sean just mentioned.
Yeah.
And he has like a question, they sit down and talk to each other, and he has a bunch of questions for her relating to his daughter. And in this scene, it's so awkward because behind that same lady that's like supposed to be the head of house, she's got like 2 hippies fucking on like a peace sign on a poster, flower imagery, kind of symbolism and themes going on here.
Yeah. But it was the 70s.
Running this like house full of young women. But yeah, moving on from that, when the movie finally does pick up, I would say it's around the time that Margot Kidder's death happens.
Yeah, no, ultimately that's the case. Everyone's back at the house. They all aren't looking for Claire anymore, so they go and, Margot Kidder's... Well, one thing, just to take a second on her for a moment. So she plays the partier, I guess you can say. She's always drunk or looking for guys or doing anything like that, so... She's that stereotypical
she's so much fun.
party.
I'm
but
just gonna say,
yeah, no,
she's probably the funnest thing about the movie.
Well, yeah, she's definitely in my opinion, the best character, most entertaining to watch. So that was the thing. So ultimately, she dies drunk and passed out. So by stabbing while sleeping. I mean, so. And at this point here, everything starts happening where the police are getting really involved and they're, realizing something funny is going on. Now, people in the house are starting to go now left and right. There aren't that many, but, the rest of the people in the house start dying until they get that infamous, famous line from this movie where she picks up the phone and it's the police.
Yes.
And what do they tell her?
Yes. The caller is in the house.
The calls are coming from the house.
1974s. I don't think we had cell phones back then, so I'm really confused how the fuck this is a possibility.
What's really funny is that this is the first time I've seen a call traced in a movie where they actually show a guy who works for the phone company running through a server room looking for a tapped phone line.
Yeah.
And you'll see it in the footage, and it's just insane that they even have to show that because you never see that in a tapped phone call scene in any movie.
And I swear this is probably the movie that also started the whole the call wasn't long enough. We didn't have enough time.
Oh my God!
Did it 4 times.
Yeah, they couldn't. She could not get him to stay on the phone longer than a minute, and they couldn't trace the call. It's kind of ridiculous. But the other thing I like about this movie too is that the way the Halloween is so drenched in that holiday. Black Christmas is so drenched in Christmas.
Yeah.
And I love the aesthetic. I think of the way that Gremlins did it with that kind of neon effect, shooting at night, big fat light bulbs.
Yeah.
Totally love it. Christmas is drenched in this movie. There's even a choir at one point that comes and carols at their house.
Very professional choir.
Yeah,
Damn, for kids.
And apparently
you guys
it's actually
practice.
in the credits too. I forgot the name of it. We saw that.
Yeah, they're actual choir.
Yeah.
But I was even thinking as it's happening, I'm like, damn. for just about a couple of kids just running around, like running Carolyn, like they're good. Like so.
Although my only criticism there is there could be a little bit more Christmas music. Actually, this film has a very light score, almost a lack thereof.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it falters, but its aesthetic is there.
Yeah, no, it is. Visually, it's very nice.
It's a very appealing looking movie.
And then also, I mean, just to pretty much wrap up, so, we figure out the killer's in the house, she's going. The movie does do a little good churn on making you think that her boyfriend Peter is the...
Well, the movie spends a lot of time dropping breadcrumbs that Peter could be the possible killer in the scenario.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think it's like, it's systematically designed that by the end, that's exactly who the audience is going to agree that it is.
Yeah.
He does pop up in rather convenient situations prior to the killer having showed up. But before we go, I do want to mention that what also makes this film so special, besides the iconic line, besides the fact that, it was so dark, dirty, it was the first holiday slasher, is the fact that this killer just doesn't have a motive. It's very vague. He's just batshit crazy. The stuff he says over the phone, like, you can't even get a handle on this guy. He has a freak out scene from a POV at one point and just starts knocking everything down because he lives, apparently, in the attic of this dormitory.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do like about this movie is that it has, like, just like Michael Myers, like, he's like Michael Myers was the shape. This guy is just, like, a crazy person. You don't even have a name.
No, you'd have nothing.
In fact, I don't think you really see him.
No, you never. You see his eye.
And I think that's kind of what's intriguing. And getting to where you left off at the end, it finishes with Peter. He does go to. He gets killed. It's an off-screen death, by the way, and it's super awkward because it seems like they're coming close to confront each other, but she's not like fully aware or accusing him yet. And then the camera cuts to another scene, comes back. He's already dead.
Yeah, well, because she thought that he was the killer, and she killed him in defending herself.
But it was off screen. That's what was so crazy. I couldn't believe that. Like, the movie was full throttle up to this point, and
then it just all of a sudden
they skimp on Peter's death.
Yeah, now there were certain things also during this time, a part of the movie, that were driving me nuts. Like, the police handled this so horribly.
Oh my god!
So it's like
someone's got to fire the people that work at that police station.
Somebody point this out to me. So you just handled the whole situation where you now believe that the murderer is dead. The girl is safe. Everything's good, but you have a couple homicides in the house. Everything's bad. What's your first thought? Leave her alone, home in bed with blood literally sitting on the bed next to the room next to her, like. They just left her alone in the house that all this happened in. Who the fuck does that?
Not to mention, there was nobody in custody. So
yeah.
The cops had absolutely no reason to think that this was like a wrap, done, and deal case.
Well, they thought
they should have still... They thought it was Peter, but this was not like a wrap. This is the same night.
Yeah, exactly.
They take off, they leave her there. But here's what I do like. See, this is like a dueling situation here because it comes with everything you're saying. I can think of something I like about it, too, because at the end... when you do feel like she's safe and sound in the home, the camera pans out and it shows you that the killer throughout the film is still living in the attic.
Yeah,
still has the body of Claire, still has the body of the sorority mom.
Yeah.
Up there with him, and the camera just pans out and it sits on the house. Cut the credits. Well, I love it because that's it. As the audience, you're like,
and the phone starts ringing again.
Yes, and the phone starts ringing again. But what a perfect touch! And that's when you feel like, as the audience, like. Man, I watched all of that, and it wasn't Peter. And we were even saying that while watching it. It's too obvious it's Peter because it's like pushing that conclusion at you super hard.
They just leave it on that she's fucked. So it's like, okay. So, I mean, that was ultimately the movie in a nutshell wrapped up. So, I mean, so you like this movie.
This is a movie that I think works because it's vulgar. It's got a great cast. It's got a villain that leaves a... It's very mysterious. You don't know anything about it. I kind of like that about the villain. I like that the less is more in this for this movie. Yeah. The villain, for sure. And then, like I said, I love that the aesthetic. I love that it's Christmas. I love how batshit it is. It's just a lot of fun to me.
See, I mean, I like the Christmas appeal, and I do like the killer and how, like you said, batshit he is. He's just gone. Like you would think he came straight out of a mental ward, no medication, nothing, no reason to be there. So, in a way, you can see how that's scary. But there's a lot about this movie that bugs the shit out of me. There's situations, like you said, the drabbing, how after the first kill, it just slowly goes on trying to find this girl. When this is a slash movie, you're waiting. Where's the body count? What's happening here? Now, the other thing that I only find rated R about this movie is the dialogue. Him on the phone, some stuff that Margot Kidder talks about, things like that.
Yeah.
This is a PG-13 movie outside of that. All murders are taken very off-screen. There's not a lot going on to where there's nothing really graphic except for words.
Ironically, that you're saying that it's a PG-13 that's what the new rating will be for the upcoming Blumhouse adaptation.
Yeah,
of Black Christmas.
it makes sense because I feel like maybe R was too strong for it.
Which is what the remake was in 2006.
Yeah.
Which I will say of the two, because I've seen them both now, that is far more the more bloodier version. I would say they're a little bit more toned on the language. This one just goes right for the field when it comes to the language.
But yeah, like a lot of like the plastic bag. There's nothing like graphic about it to where I feel like when it comes to say Halloween or any other slasher, Texas
Chainsaw. You feel dirty when you watch Black Christmas.
See, I don't.
I don't know. I kind of do. It's a little bit of a grimy movie in the sense of like the language.
See, Texas Chainsaw is a movie that would make me feel like grimy because it's like it's the same thing, the same level of language, the same level of just like awfulness. But this does not have that. All that has is just some guy. This is shit that, like, to today's standards is nothing to, like, some kid in middle school would call some girl and go off on her, like, bad. Like, they'd say a lot worse shit today. But I get, like, in the 70s, this was probably this is probably some awful shit to say. But that was, to me, was, like, the harshest shit about the movie. It wasn't even the violence or anything of that sort. It was just the language. So I don't know. That's just me to where I'm not, like I said, I like the visuals, I like the lights, I don't even mind the cast, but I don't know. This movie did not hit me where I think it hit you, because to me, I'm like, I think this movie kind of sucked. So,
fair enough. I would give it a recommendation. It just takes a certain type of person to enjoy this movie. I don't know why I enjoy its corniness. Something about this one. I will say, though, that is the worst aspect, is the pacing.
If John Saxon wasn't in this, it'd have a lot more problems.
Fair enough. That's the verdict, y'all. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and check out our other stuff at www.thevariantnewssource.com when you get a moment.
Yep.
Thank you for watching. Follow, share.
Like and subscribe.
You heard. Have a good night.
Have a good one.